They called it the land of eternity. The ancient Egyptians built monuments so vast, temples so precise, and tombs so carefully hidden that they believed their kings would rule forever, even after death. Their pyramids and sarcophagi were not just coffins, they were engines of immortality, but alongside the promise of eternal life came an equally powerful warning: disturb the sacred dead, and you will pay the price. This warning became the legend we now call the Curse of the Pharaohs. The notion of cursed tombs wasn't invented in the 20th century. In fact, ancient Egyptian priests often inscribed protective spells right into the stone. A typical warning might read, "Death shall come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king." These were not metaphors to the Egyptians. Their entire belief system revolved around magic, spoken words, and divine power. They thought names, spells, and curses had actual force in the universe. If you break into a tomb, you're not just stealing gold, you're upsetting the balance between gods and men. But for centuries, these threats seemed like empty words. After all, Egypt was looted for millennia. Grave robbers plundered treasures. Roman emperors carted off obelisks. Even Napoleon's troops poked around tombs. Yet the idea of a deadly curse didn't capture the modern world until one very famous discovery in 1922. Howard Carter, a meticulous British archaeologist, had spent years digging in the Valley of the Kings. His wealthy backer, Lord Carnarvon, was close to pulling the plug. Funds were running out, patience was wearing thin. But in November 1922, Carter's team finally struck gold, or more precisely, a sealed doorway leading to the burial chamber of Pharaoh Tutankhamun. Inside lay treasures unlike anything the modern world had seen: golden statues, chariots, jewelry, and the iconic burial mask that would become the face of ancient Egypt. Newspapers from London to New York plastered the story on their front pages. But with the excitement came whispers. Locals muttered warnings about ancient curses. Carter dismissed them. Western science had no time for superstitions. And then the deaths began. Lord Carnarvon was the first. Just months after the tomb was opened, he died suddenly in Cairo from a seemingly trivial mosquito bite that turned septic. He was 56. The press exploded with headlines. Death comes on swift wings, echoing those ancient warnings. And then came the eerie details. At the exact moment of Carnarvon's death, the lights in Cairo reportedly flickered out. Back in England, his beloved dog howled and collapsed dead. Coincidence or something more? He was not the last. Over the next decade, a string of deaths followed people linked to the tomb. Carter's secretary dropped dead suddenly. Another financial backer died of blood poisoning. An Egyptologist who helped examine the mummy died from a strange illness. A member of Carnarvon's family was killed in a car accident. Another archaeologist collapsed from heart failure after visiting the tomb. Each death was catalogued by the press as further proof that Tutankhamun's curse was real. In total, by the 1930s, more than 20 deaths were being attributed to the curse. The fact that many others lived long lives didn't matter to the public. People love patterns, even where none exist. Howard Carter himself became a target of speculation. He lived for 17 more years after opening the tomb, dying peacefully at 64. If the curse was real, why was he spared? Some suggested the gods let the discoverer live as a messenger. Others said Carter was shielded because he had approached the tomb with respect. Skeptics had a simpler answer: the curse was just a myth. Scientists proposed alternative explanations. Some pointed to toxic molds and bacteria sealed in the tombs for centuries. Disturbing the mummy wrappings could release spores that triggered respiratory illness. In 1999, researchers analyzed tombs and confirmed the presence of Aspergillus, a mold that can cause deadly infections in people with weakened immune systems. Others suggested carbon monoxide gas or formaldehyde trapped in the chambers. But while these might explain a few illnesses, they didn't account for car accidents or heart attacks years later. The truth is, belief in the curse often did the work itself. Psychologists point out that people primed to expect misfortune may interpret every setback as evidence of supernatural punishment. This is called the nocebo effect, the dark twin of the placebo. If you believe you are cursed, stress and fear weaken your immune system. Every cough feels fatal, every trip unlucky. Some Egyptologists joked that the most dangerous thing about the curse was reading about it in the newspapers. The media, of course, poured gasoline on the fire. The 1920s was an era of sensational journalism. Mummy's curse strikes again sold more papers than man dies of infection. It was irresistible. Ancient magic, wealthy aristocrats, and mysterious deaths all in one package. Soon, Hollywood joined in. Films like The Mummy, 1932, and countless B-movies turned the idea into a cultural trope. By the mid-20th century, the mummy wasn't just a dusty relic, it was a cinematic monster. But strip away the exaggerations, and the story of the curse still tells us something profound about human beings. It shows how fear, coincidence, and storytelling intertwine. A mosquito bite, a car accident, a sudden illness. These things happen all the time. But framed against the backdrop of a golden tomb and an ancient warning, they transform into legend. The pharaohs may not have reached out from the afterlife to punish the living, but their power to inspire awe and terror has lasted for millennia. Even today, visitors to Tutankhamun's treasures in Cairo whisper nervously about the curse. Some claim to feel uneasy, even sick, when standing near his sarcophagus. Guides still repeat the legend to wide-eyed tourists. The rational part of us knows there's no scientific evidence for a mystical curse. And yet the story endures, because it scratches a deeper itch. The belief that some things are too sacred to be disturbed, that actions have consequences beyond reason. The Egyptians themselves might smile at this. For them, words and symbols were alive. To inscribe a curse was to summon divine protection. In that sense, the curse of the pharaohs is real, not because it strikes with magical bolts, but because it still commands respect, fear, and fascination 3,000 years later. So was the curse ever real? Perhaps not in the supernatural sense, but as a psychological force, as a cultural legend, it has been incredibly powerful. It has shaped headlines, haunted imaginations, and inspired everything from pulp fiction to blockbuster movies. And in that sense, the pharaohs achieved their goal. Their names and their legacies endure. Their tombs are still guarded, if not by magic, then by myth. The true curse is not death or misfortune. The true curse is the weight of fascination that never ends, the eternal grip these kings still hold on us. Long after their bones have turned to dust, they still command attention. And maybe that's exactly what they wanted. Comment, like and subscribe for more stories of ancient mysteries, curses, and legends that refuse to die.